Hi everyone, and welcome to Let's Talk Real Estate. I'm Ellen Roche from Movement Mortgage, and I'm here today with
Judy Moynihan from Century 21 Northeast.
And today we're going to talk about the actual application process. So you've found your home, you've made an offer, it was accepted, you've had your home inspection, thanks to your realtor, and then and then it's time to actually go for the mortgage. So the first thing that we need to talk about is the interest rate. Obviously, that is,
It's been subject of a lot of conversations lately.
Yes, and unfortunately, the rates are not in the 3s anymore. They're more like in the 6s.
Yeah.
In some cases, you can get in the high 5s, but the rate really shouldn't matter right now. What matters is you found a home and you feel comfortable with that mortgage payment.
Yeah.
So as long as you're feeling comfortable and you qualify. So I think I mentioned in the last section a little bit about the ratios and what's needed and how you need that 45% total ratio.
Yeah.
So that's what's going to happen during the process is we're going to take all that paperwork that I received during the pre-approval process, so the past 2-year W-2s, the pay stub, and the bank statements, and once somebody gets, we lock somebody in, and then we send the whole file to the underwriter. So the mortgage underwriter is the one that's going to give the final decision. So let's talk about that. So we get a commitment letter before our commitment date. We always want to make sure that that commitment letter covers not only the underwriter approval for the buyer, but also for the appraisal. So how long do you think, are you seeing appraisals, how long are they taking, would you say, right now? Or what do you tell your buyers to use for a commitment date?
I usually go a week before closing, a week or two before closing, because once we find the home and you put the application in for them, then one of the first things you guys order is the appraisal.
Right.
The appraiser calls me, but it's usually a good week before that starts. It's maybe a couple more days for the appraiser to come out, but the appraisers have a lot of information to get together. Mm-hmm. It takes them probably 7 to 10 days to get that appraisal. So it's a good 2-week process.
That's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing about 2 weeks for once I order the appraisal and once they're coming back. About 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure that commitment date, is extended far enough out to protect the deposit and to make sure that appraisal does come in.
Yeah.
So that's what the approval process, that's what's going to take place is it's going to go to the underwriter, and the underwriter is going to look at all of the income docs and the asset docs and also the appraisal. So now you get all of your conditions in that the underwriter is asking for, and we're looking for that clear to close. I'm sure that those are one of your favorite words that you like to hear.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Clear to close.
It's a lot of information to get together that, we streamline that process, but, when you look back at it, it is a lot of information, so it's more like that finish line, that
right.
clear
Absolutely.
to close.
Yes. And then going to the closing. Now, one of the things that I wanted to talk about too, which is very important during this process, is within the first 3 days of somebody applying, they're going to receive what's called a loan estimate. Probably the most important piece of paper that you're going to get during this process. Why is that? It outlines every cost involved. So it's going to outline not only the down payment, the total down payment, whether that's 3%, 5%, 10%, or 20% or more. It's also going to get into what the interest rate is, what the payments are, and what all the closing costs are. And we could do a whole segment just on closing costs.
Yeah.
But to get into that a little bit, you're going to have the appraisal fee, you're going to have attorney fees, you're going to have lender fees. On top of that, you're also going to have enough money to put into escrow for your taxes and your insurance. Yeah. So that mortgage payment consists of your mortgage payment, principal and interest, plus taxes and insurance. Tell us a little bit about the taxes, Judy, as far as it's not the same. They don't value the house and the taxes the same that they do an appraisal. How do they do the tax, like when the assessment on the taxes? Like,
Well, the city does that. They
Right.
put the taxes
Yeah.
out. So,
And
but the taxes are part of your monthly payment because they're going to escrow, those
Mm-hmm.
escrow funds that you had said. And a lot of times that closing cost seems like a real lot, but they've escrowed usually 3 months of taxes,
they do,
correct?
yep. So you always have to be, in Massachusetts,
you're
you've got to be a
ahead.
whole quarter ahead.
Quarter
In
ahead.
New Hampshire, it's biannually.
So it's 6 months in New
Yeah,
Hampshire.
in New Hampshire. So that's why I'm always telling buyers, New Hampshire is more expensive
to close.
to close because you have taxes due biannually and you have to be a whole half a year up front, as well as tax stamps. Tax
Yep.
stamps in New Hampshire, buyers don't have to pay them in Mass. So what tax stamps are is in New Hampshire, it's $7.50 per every 1,000 as a closing cost on the sales price. So $7.50 per the sales price. And in Mass, you don't have to pay that. Only the seller has to pay them. So it helps a little.
It helps a
you
lot.
know, yeah, absolutely. So, so what I was trying to get at, though, is in regards to those closing costs that consist of taxes, insurance, those can vary based on where you're buying.
Yep.
And it's one of those things that somebody really a buyer needs to know that up front. And that would be on what's called the loan estimate. So once somebody signs the loan estimate and everything, is heading off to closing, 3 days before closing, you have what is called the closing disclosure. That closing disclosure really can't be too different from that initial loan estimate. You can't, like, all of a sudden start changing fees at the last minute.
Yep.
I have people that actually are, they get nervous about that. That's one of the biggest questions I get is, will my fees change from now until closing?
Yep.
And the only thing that can change from that loan estimate to that closing disclosure really is the taxes and the insurance. Everything else has to stay the same unless the program has changed. Now, do you go? When you go to the closing with most
Usually,
yeah,
yeah.
Yep. Tell us a little bit about that. What happens at the closing?
They sign a lot of papers.
Yeah.
Everything's predetermined by that point, and they have 3 days to look at that closing
Yes.
statement that you had explained
Right.
and go through those numbers, usually with either their lender or their attorney.
Mm-hmm.
And everything's pretty much understood when we get there. It's a finish line. It's a happy time.
It's a happy time.
And it's
yeah.
when everything comes together.
Right.
You know your numbers by there. There shouldn't be any surprises. You've done a walkthrough of the home 24 hours before that because
Right.
it's been a good month since you've been there. Made that huge major purchase just to make sure that's okay. And the closing's a wonderful time. It's my favorite part of the whole process. And then
Right.
they get the keys to their home and they
Yep.
get to move in.
A very happy time.
Yeah, it's an exciting time. It's part of the American dream, home ownership.
Absolutely.
That's
Yeah.
why we'd like to simplify this process and help out. And
Let me ask you this. So do you see differences between like somebody buying a condo or a single family or a two family when it comes to the whole process and the whole closing from a realtor's standpoint?
Well, really, it's the lender. I want to make sure that they can, they come in and say, sometimes I want to do a two-family and I can afford a $600,000 two-family, and then at the same token, they get confused that they see a single-family house they love and they think and it's $600,000. I qualify for that. It's really apples and oranges.
Yep.
So there is a huge difference between purchasing a condo, purchasing a single-family, and purchasing a multifamily, but that's a conversation you're going to have with your lender. And when they send over that pre-approval to me, it's going to be a pre-approval for a two-family up to $600,000 or a single-family up to $450,000. So it's real important that I look at that letter.
So let's talk a little bit about that, the difference between the properties and what better, is the better programs for each one of them. A lot of first-time home buyers, they opt for a condo, which isn't a bad option. Because with a condo, I find it's a way that a buyer can, get their feet wet, so to speak, and learn how to, all the ins and outs of owning a home without the maintenance of the home.
Yep.
And we can get into that a little bit. Tell us about the maintenance of the home? Like when you own a single-family home, what are some of the things that you run into?
Well, you're responsible for anything, the roof leaks or the hot water heater goes, and all of those responsibilities of yours, 100%, or even the liability of the home and keeping, the sidewalks shoveled.
Right.
A condominium is a little bit different. You pay into a company, a property management company that usually comes and takes care of all that stuff for you. But of course, there's an added fee onto it. Condo fees, though, I like to try to explain to people that those are fees you are going to pay anyways. And it's kind of nice that it's all rolled into that one fee. So you pay now or pay later. Condos are a little bit more prepared. You wake up and it snows and they're right there shoveling. You're not looking for your snowplow or waiting for them. So there's some conveniences to condos, but it's still not a single-family home. Some people want a single-family home.
Exactly. So as far as the condo goes, I think that one of the other important things that you have to take into consideration is it's not just the buyer or the borrower that needs to be approved. We have to approve the condo itself.
Oh, yeah.
And one of the things that I think helps get somebody prepared is when we get that condo approved during the home inspection period. So if somebody does want to buy a condo and they put an offer, I think the best thing is to ask for all the condo docs up front so we can, we'll know ahead of time if it's a good condo. What do you see in regards to that?
Well, I usually like to ask when I know that I look at their funding again in their pre-approval, and if they are FHA, I usually, before they get too excited, I like to see if it's FHA approved.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, because condos can be kind of,
it's being prepared, Eleanor.
Yes.
You notice a lot of this as we're talking about is being prepared, and that's what we'd like to help you with today, is being prepared. Having all that done ahead of time so it's a smooth transaction for you, a happy transaction for you, and that we're showing you houses that you actually can buy and that you can approve. But at the same token, I'm always having to tell people, wait a minute, don't get excited just here because I'll see red flags here or there.
Right.
And that's what you want. You want them to be prepared. No surprises at the end. We can't have the surprises at the end. They're too invested. They want their home. And I don't want a week before you think you're moving into your home that something has gone wrong. So it's so important to good lender, good realtor.
Right. And we can talk more about the condos in a different segment, but I think it is important to know ahead of time certain questions, and the two that stick out, just based on my experience, is how many units are owner-occupied versus investor.
There's so many little things. You're bringing up things that even sometimes I go, oh yeah, that's right.
Right. Yeah, things like that. So, yeah, absolutely. So, very important if you are thinking of purchasing a condo, because a condo is a great way to enter into the real estate market.
And the prices sometimes are a little bit better. They can get into a condo as opposed to a single family.
And then, let's face it, when you're ready to move out of the condo, you can sell it and make a profit to buy that single family.
They're very desirable now. Condos at first, when they came out in our area, Haverhill area, in like the 80s, and they really didn't catch on too much, but condos have caught on. It's a convenient way to live. It's worked out well for a lot of people.
Absolutely.
Because of the responsibilities of being a homeowner.
Right, right. So that's one of the questions if you are seriously thinking about a condo, that's one of the questions you want to ask is how many investor versus owner-occupied, and does one individual own more than 10% of all the condos? There are certain things that can be red flags, and that's why we're here to help you figure that out. There are definitely red flags when you're purchasing a condo, and we want to take that
even
fear
those little
away.
things change. You need a lender you can work with, because those things do change. You find that out, but I don't. And there's things that are happening on the real estate end or whatever they don't. So the lender and the realtor really need to be a team that are doing a lot behind the scenes.
Right. Absolutely.
That make your transition smoother.
Right. And now let's talk about a two-family. So that's another great way to enter the market.
Yeah.
Because you can get the rent to help pay for your rent. And you can buy a two-family or a three-family or a four-family with as little as 3.5% down, which is really helpful.
Yeah, it's a good way for people to get in the market.
Absolutely. And what I think, and I love to tell people this, once you buy that multifamily with little money down, then you can go and you can purchase either that condo or that single family, and you can rent the multifamily out, and that can help pay for your mortgage payment on the single family home. It's a great way to really win in real estate.
Yeah. There's so many different options.
Absolutely. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit now about the single family and what is what's the benefit of that single family? Obviously, you don't have neighbors you have to deal with.
Yeah.
But some of the things you need to know, let's talk about that as far as what's a good to look for during the home inspection, would you say? Or, what are those things that a buyer really needs to know, to look for?
Well, the buyer needs to work with a home inspector because a lot of them aren't contractors, and this thing they may not even know to look for other than your obvious. You want to look at the roof. You always want to look at the siding. You want to see how old it is. You go into the basement, which is the heart of the house, and you look at the furnace, and but you do need some professionals to go in there and look at it, and it's important. You don't want to go in and then find out that.
Yeah.
We can maybe do that on another segment because we could get into a whole segment on a home inspector, and we'd be happy to bring a home inspector in.
We could do that, is bring a home inspector in. Some of the things that I tell people during a home inspection to make sure, too, is just to make sure there's no safety issues, because a lot of times an appraiser will come out, and if there's missing handrails,
for an FHA loan.
Yes, that
under 20%.
Yep, exactly.
You come up and you put 20% down, Ellen, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's a different process. The bank isn't so invested.
Well, when you're going conventional, it is a little bit better, as far as the.
What is conventional? When you say conventional,
so conventional is if you're going a regular 30-year fixed, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, or Mass Housing or New Hampshire Housing. It's called conventional. And they are a little bit less strict. They're a little bit more lenient when it comes to the property. FHA definitely wants to make sure that there are no safety issues.
Yeah.
But honestly, it all has to do with the appraiser. An appraiser could go out and see a safety issue on a conventional loan and want that fixed.
Yeah.
Like missing handrails or a window that's been smashed. Things like that you have to really make sure, that it's going to adhere to those guidelines.
Yeah.
But I think that whether it's a condo or a single family or a multifamily, I think that your best bet is just to go for it.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Just really, it's worth having it as a goal. It's a way to build wealth.
It's stability for your family, too. You rent, you can be, they sell the property or they might need your unit, and there's no guarantee you're going to be there more than a year. So that's kind of hard if you've got children in school or if you've got, so that stability of owning your own home, whether it be a condo, a multifamily, or a single family, is the base bone. You need a place to live.
Right, and there's nothing like the pride of home ownership.
That's another whole episode because yes, it opens up a lot.
Yes, it certainly does. Well, thank you for being with us for this segment of Let's Talk Real Estate, and we will see you soon.